If you're trying to stretch your pantry and feed your family from what you already have, this week is for you. Welcome to week 3 of our pantry challenge. I'm using home canned apple pie filling to make apple cobbler, baking pumpkin bread from frozen garden squash, fresh ground flour waffles, and prepping more of our bulk apples, including fermenting some for later. We'll also touch on winter gardening, bake sourdough focaccia and graham crackers, and do it all right alongside my kids in real life. Let's get into this week. Hi, friend. If you're new here, my name is Sarah. I'm a nurse turned homemaker and homesteader, and I'm really enjoying this pantry challenge this year. I've really been able to start utilizing the homemaking skills that I have learned over the last several years, and I'm so excited to share them with you today.
Apple.
Apple. As a nurse, I have always been a very task-oriented person, so becoming a homemaker, leaving my career, and learning to manage my home has been an adjustment to say the least. Now I am learning to slow down, appreciate my children at my side or under my feet as I am going about my day. As you can see, I do have my youngest here next to me who is always, always moving his stool around to get as close as possible to me. And this has been an adjustment for sure, but it has been a very well worth it adjustment. I wouldn't trade these moments for anything, and I pray that we are making some great memories here in my kitchen. So one of the many reasons that I chose this recipe today is because this bottle that you see me pouring right now is leftover fresh ground flour that I've been accumulating and trying to use up, and this was just a great way to do that. I also have several jars of canned apple pie filling that was very thin, and I didn't have great luck with using it as an apple pie filling itself. It stayed really thin even after I would add the arrowroot powder. And when I am making it this way, I am able to utilize the juices instead of the milk that the recipe calls for. On this day, I did not end up using all of the liquid, so I did put it in the fridge and use it on another project, I believe in the waffles or something along those lines later in the week. So it did not go to waste. But as you can see, my daughter is thoroughly excited. And the other reason for this recipe is the oats that I added into it. I have a ginormous 5-gallon bucket plus of the organic rolled oats, and I wanted to get them used up. My kids seem to be a tad bit tired of me making our traditional baked oatmeal, which is another way that I would typically utilize the apple pie filling. And so I'm kind of stuck. I can only make so much granola and so many granola bars. So this was a great alternative. If I didn't feel like the kids were chomping at the bit, I would have also added a crumble topping, but they were really just wanting me to get it in the oven and getting fed. This definitely came out really well, and I did use the fresh ground flour, so there is a little bit of extra nutrition in there as opposed to the all-purpose, plus the oats does add some protein and carbs for them, but this is pretty sugary. So of course, this is not all that I fed them. I just completely spaced and had to start the sausage late, which I will show you in just a second. But always have some kind of protein that's going to help fill their bellies for longer. I don't typically always start with sugary treats in the morning, and if I do, I always require them to have a protein. So when I make things like Pop-Tarts and such, I make sure that they eat their eggs first, and as a treat, they get that after the fact. So I just refilled the bone broth pot that I have on the stove. I'm going to use this for my crock pot meal that I'm about to prepare. If you're hearing that noise, I have the washing machine going, and you just saw me start the dishwasher. So hopefully you can hear me well. If not, I'll just skip all of this. But I'm gonna make a slow cooker white chicken chili. I think this is from Christine's notebook. I'm going to be tailoring this to what I have in the pantry that I need to get rid of. It calls for fresh jalapenos. I have a can of diced that is probably pretty expired. Yes, 23. I'm going to use this instead. And then it calls for a 4-ounce can of green chilies. I have diced tomatoes with green chilies, so I'm going to use this. So it's going to be a little different, and I'm still out of celery, which I've been out of celery for like a week now. Such is life. I probably have freeze-dried or something that I can put in there. But I'm going to use my wonderful green pan. And another reason I chose this is because I have a bunch of these, the white beans. I'm just going to say that. If you know me, you know I can't really say complicated words. Tongue doesn't work. But I have a ton of these cans of beans. And then I also have a ton of dried beans in varying kinds, and this one in particular. So I need to get through these. So that's what I'm going to do today. And then the broth, like I said, from here, this will probably be my last pot for this bone broth. It's been a couple days, probably about 2 days it's been on here. I do turn it off at night because it is a gas stove and I'm not chancing that. So I think probably tomorrow I will give the rest of the meat and bones and stuff to the chickens for their added protein. And the dishwasher just turned on, so now let's get started. So first I'm just going to turn my green pan on to saute and add some cooking oil into it, and I'm going to salt and pepper the tops of the chicken breasts that I'm going to be using. And once I have them in the pan, I'm going to salt and pepper the backside of them. And these tongs were not meant to be used on slippery chicken. You'll notice later on that I do switch my tongs out. So just watching me struggle here trying to get it into the bag is my little gift to you. A lot of my onions were going pretty soft, and even some were getting kind of moldy, so I was having to cut quite a bit of them off. You'll probably notice that a little bit throughout this video, but I think it's because I was storing them with the potatoes, and apparently you're not supposed to do that. So, lesson learned, but I don't have a basement or a cold storage here in Northern California, so I kind of do what I can, and that was my best at the time. Like I had mentioned earlier, I am diverting from the recipe just a little bit to accommodate the pantry challenge and what I have on hand. And I am just kind of guesstimating based on the recipe how many tablespoons of jalapeno to put in this. I did end up putting a 1/3 tablespoon in there, and it was semi-spicy. My husband and I really enjoyed it, but my kids did say it was just a tad bit spicy. And if you're ever wondering how to store little canned items like this or your tomato paste, this is how I do it, especially with the Kirkland brand bags being kind of flat bottomed, it works really, really well. So besides the salt and pepper, I'm using some cumin, oregano, Italian seasoning, and some coriander, I believe it was. And I am just mixing it all together, and then I am adding the juices and the chicken back into the pot to simmer for the rest of the day. This broth was delicious, and I did end up making one more pot of it that I will be utilizing later on. And like I've said before, having the dinner going early on and I can just let it go, not worry about it, is really a blessing for me in this busy stage of life. Now I am just preparing my flour for the next project that I'm going to be making, which is my pumpkin muffin recipe that I've shared before, but I'm doing it to accommodate this challenge. So after I get back from my walk today, I am adding in the corn. This is the last of the frozen corn from my freezer that I was able to clear out. So another win for the day in this pantry challenge, in my opinion. And then I rinsed off the several cans of white beans that I am adding. And this really was a delicious, delicious dinner. I'm going to use, I have several of these bags pureed from the garden several years ago. I think it was like pink squash or something. I'm going to make a batch of my pumpkin muffins, but I'm going to do it in a bread loaf today just to make cleanup easier, not have to deal with the little cups. So I do have several of these in my freezer I need to use, but this is the first way I'm going to do it. And dinner is done. That was the Instant Pot. So I'm going to try and get these in the oven. Let's go. I do have this recipe on my blog. I will link it below. I also have other videos on how to make it. So I'm just going to kind of throw it together, throw it in the loaf pans. And it's pretty self-explanatory. But instead of canned, I'll be using my own. And this is me in the afternoon. I changed clothes because I did my exercise outside. So this is post-exercise afternoon. Just didn't feel like getting back in my dress. So here I am. Oh, I do need to use up this pumpkin spice mix. So I'm going to use that today. I don't even know how old this is. It's still closed, so that's good. But I'll be using this instead of all the clove and nutmeg and everything. I'm just going to use this today. Yeah, it smells fine. This recipe will easily make 24 muffins. I usually end up with a little bit more. And if you add in anything like chocolate chips, that'll definitely expand and stretch the batter even more. So this recipe is on my blog and I will link it in the description box below. But it is pretty simple. Just some eggs, sugar, the canned pumpkin generally, but like I said, I am using my garden squash puree here and the pumpkin pie spice that I'm trying to get rid of, along with some baking powder, oil, and then I will be adding in the fresh ground flour to the consistency that I like. Generally, I start with about 3 cups and then I just keep adding until, like I said, it gets to the consistency that I like. And the type of fresh ground flour always just depends on if I have anything left over from a previous project, like what I had in the fridge that I want to use up, or if I just felt like using something specific that day. They do have little bits of different flavors to them, but considering this is like a quick bread or a muffin, I don't need to develop that gluten, so I can use any kind of wheat berry that I would like. Something that this pantry challenge has really brought to light for me is just how blessed we really are. We truly are blessed, and it does take things like this to stretch yourself to really see it sometimes. We do live just above the poverty line. We are a one income family, and the only reason that things have been able to stretch is because we did prepare for bad seasons beforehand. I'm gonna give them an extra treat, and I'm gonna put this on top. Back when I was still working as a nurse, we had the forethought to start stocking up our pantry in order to have some food security just in case one of us lost our job and we weren't ready for it. Because back then, our lives revolved around two incomes. We didn't see the writing on the wall for us, and that I was needing to be home a lot more than I had been until a few years ago. And when that happened, God opened all the doors for us to be able to sell our home, move, and survive off of my husband's income. To say that that was a shift is an understatement. I was not used to being home and running a household. I was used to being at the hospital and working 3 12-hour shifts all the time. So that in itself was a change. But then also learning that I needed to really start focusing on what my family ate even more. That is when I really started trying to learn all of these skills of cooking from scratch. I say all of this so that you can have some encouragement if you are just starting out, or if you're thinking of starting out in building your pantry or even utilizing what you have been storing away in your pantry. Start stretching those skills, those theoretical muscles while you can, and you will be so happy that you did in the long run. One of my favorite ways to hide nutrients in a sweet treat of sorts for my children is to do fresh ground flour waffles. I have shared this recipe before with you guys, and on this day, I'm going to be using this powdered liver supplement because it is winter and I feel like my kids really need an extra boost. So I am really trying to put it into absolutely everything that I can because it is diluted quite a bit in the batter or in the smoothies that I have been making them. And on this day, I am making a triple batch so that I have enough left over to give them in the morning before having to go run some errands the next day. I also like to make this for a last minute dinner and just add some kind of protein like sausage or bacon or whatever maybe leftover I have in the fridge. Doesn't really matter because it is still nutritious from the fresh ground flour. And then again, hiding some supplements. Sometimes I will put the collagen peptides or anything along those lines in it as well. But it is a very quick, fun dinner, especially on like Friday nights when we have movie night, and you really just can't go wrong with it. If you are dairy free, you could use that apple pie filling juice that I had saved in the fridge. You could use water. You do not have to use milk. You can use any other kind of liquid. I have substituted it out for kefir before. You do have to thin it out just a little bit, maybe with some water or a little extra milk if you wanted to go that route for the protein. I still have, two boxes like this to get through. And as you can see, I need to work on these today and tomorrow. I'm probably going to do some fermented apples like I've seen Ruth Zimmerman do. It sounds like a good idea. And then just letting the kids snack on them. I'll probably make some applesauce today just for lunch itself, not to can again. And I think these are Rome tomatoes. I think that's what she called them. Or apples, Rome apples, not tomatoes. Whoops. I love that my daughter is sitting on the other side of the counter just bopping along to her little Yodo player there. They really have taken to that Christmas gift so much. And all of the nursery rhyme songs that they are constantly jumping around and singing is putting such new life into this house, and I am absolutely here for it. So like I had just said, I have a ton of apples and I'm just preparing for lunch today. My kids really like the warm, fresh applesauce. On this day, I am not peeling them. I am just coring them. And it made the most beautiful pink applesauce that I will show you shortly. But my kids really do prefer me to peel them. So now they have seen the pink, they want it the other way where I use the little apple spiralizer. But this was a great, quick, nutritious snack for them this day. I am trying to block the immersion blender from my baby behind me because this thing does spurt out some hot applesauce here and there. My dress was semi-covered in the wall, so please know that I was cognizant of that. But look at that beautiful, beautiful pink color. I have never had one like this before. These were Rome apples, I believe. When you are just starting out with milling your own grains, I would suggest you start with hard red and hard white. You really don't need any other grains than those to get started. You can make pretty much anything with just those. After that, you might be able to get into a soft berry, which is the one that will not form the gluten. So things for cookies and cakes and all of that kind of stuff. But the other two will always form gluten, and they're interchangeable with the soft berries for that, if that makes sense. But after that, you can go into things like kamut and spelt and all those other ancient grains. On this day, I wanted to test my starters ability to work under not ideal circumstances. As you saw, it was not very life-giving. It was on its way down, and it works just fine. Not as good as if it was a fresh, bubbly starter, but I didn't want to feed it again. As you can see, it's pretty full, which means I would have had to use another jar and then put the discard in the fridge. And that may seem tedious, but I just don't like doing it because then I forget about it. So on this day, I am doing the focaccia bread and I am doing it with the whole grain flour. And it didn't rise obviously as well as if you were using all purpose, but it was still quite tasty and the kids really enjoyed it and are asking me to make more very, very soon. So like with any of these recipes where I am swapping out the fresh milled flour for the all-purpose, I will add what the recipe says, and then I will slowly add in more. The general rule of thumb when converting to fresh milled flour is 1¼ cup for every 1 cup of all-purpose. However, I have found that that is not always the case, and so I rather just go slow, especially with sourdough if you're not using a yeasted bread, and even then, take your time. It will be forgiving. And if you are still new to the baking your own bread world, maybe start with the all-purpose and then work your way up to the fresh milled grains, and maybe even then starting with a 50-50 ratio. Because once you learn the texture that you're going for, the swap becomes so much easier. Now I am working on the sourdough graham crackers. I will link this recipe in the video description below. It is from Farmhouse on Boone. Hers did come out much better than mine, but this was also my first time, and they still tasted absolutely delicious. They tasted just like a graham cracker cookie, and you'll see why shortly, because it essentially looks like a cookie dough. I chose this recipe because I want to start letting my kids have s'mores. The next item on my list is, of course, to learn to make the homemade marshmallows. I haven't gone there yet. I do still have the store-bought ones that I need to get through, so that will be it for now, but it is on my list of recipes to tackle soon. This really was a straightforward recipe, super simple. I did like that it was already formulated for fresh ground flour because that's what she's been using. So it was a 50-50 split between the all-purpose and that. So I didn't really have any guesswork with it. I do believe I did end up adding a little bit extra flour because it was just so sticky and cookie-like. As you can see, I still had to use my spatula to squish it out into the saran wrap and use the sides of the saran wrap to get it to fold in well. And I put this into the fridge until tomorrow. So it had a good long time to sit and soak up the liquid and ferment a little bit. With that applesauce for lunch, I just used leftover bacon grease to cook up some kielbasa and a pot of rice. So it was super simple and delicious. And then I also had some of the leftover fresh broccoli that I am just air frying. So I am pre-soaking some sweet pea seeds that a friend gave me, and I wanted to get planted in the garden. So these soaked for about 28-ish hours until I was really able to get them outside. You can see they're already semi-sprouting. It has been a false spring here in Northern California. We have blooms going on our fruit trees. Everything really is just getting lured into this false sense of spring. You can see that my in-ground beds here are just absolutely covered in green foliage. So for dinner tonight, I'm gonna see if I can repurpose these, what do you call it, instant mashed potatoes by making like a shepherd's pie with some chicken that I have. And then I'm going to use some leftover green beans. Green beans I canned in October of 22. And some tomato sauce that I have made, which is pretty liquidy. This is August of 23. So I'm gonna use these today. I'm gonna shred some cheese. I'm gonna put it on top. I'm just gonna make like a basic type of shepherd's pie / casserole. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe add some garlic and see what else I have that I can throw in there. I think 2 quarts should be enough. So I'm gonna follow these directions and see what I got. But I have leftover broth from the other day that I showed you. So I'm gonna kind of do half and half so we can have some added nutrition. Because let's face it, these potatoes are gonna be lacking nutrition. So never mind, I'm just gonna only use the bone broth. Save me some meal. Lovely freeze-dried, boxed, instant potatoes. So if you're new to the cooking from scratch world, this does not generally include this because it's devoid of many nutrients that you would get from actually boiling and mashing your own potatoes. However, I did buy this many years ago. The oven is preheated. I did buy this many years ago as a emergency pantry staple. However, it is expired, so I need to get through it. It is freeze dried, really doesn't go bad if it was in like Mylar and all that kind of stuff. So for this pantry challenge, I'm going to use this, and then I'll probably, when I buy again from Azure, will buy something organic from them if they still have it. Haven't seen it in a while. But this is something good to have in your emergency pantry. So the only reason I'm using it is, again, because it's expired. It's in a cardboard box. It's not really packaged for long term like I would want. And it was on sale, so here we are. That's why I'm using it today. There you go. So while I'm getting this done, I'm gonna work on cutting up my chicken. I'm gonna make it very thin as possible to go into my casserole dish, just so it cooks through a lot faster than it would. That's almost done. I'm gonna grab my casserole dish. I am so glad that on this day I had broth to add to it instead of milk. I feel like it really brought a depth of flavor along with the nutrition as opposed to just normal bland boxed potatoes that most of us are probably used to having. So with this chicken, I'm just gonna season it with typical household pantry staples like salt, pepper, garlic powder, and Italian seasonings, and it came out really well. I'm not too surprised considering those are the best pantry staples in my opinion. You can't really go wrong with them. But if that is not your flavor profile, then mix it up to match what you prefer eating. I am just going to add some oil to it because, chicken isn't the fattiest meat. Mix it around, and then I did have some leftover sauce that I need to get through in my pantry. So I'm adding that in, and another can of homegrown and canned green beans that I need to get through. I am almost out of those. So after I drained it, I'm just going to mix it all together, and then I'm going to layer that boxed mashed potatoes on top. and smush it down to make that typical homestead shepherd's pie type thing. And then, of course, nothing seems complete in this house unless we put some kind of cheese on top. On this day, I am just using some sharp cheddar cheese, but really, I don't think you can go wrong with any type of cheese that suits your fancy. And I just put it in the oven at 350 for probably about 45 minutes to an hour. I did do this and put a meat thermometer into a piece of chicken to just make sure that it was cooked through, and it was, thankfully. The next day, I'm going to be tackling this focaccia dough. I did put it out into the garage where it's cooler at night, and as you can see, it did bubble a little bit, but it is still pretty darn sticky. With this focaccia bread, I probably could have used a little bit more oil underneath and on top, but again, if with fresh milled flour, you really just don't know too much until you really get into it. And it did come out okay, but I really do wish that it rose some more. So if you have any tips or tricks for me, let me know in the comment section below. I will be doing this all summer long with fresh veggies. That is just the best to me. I have a lot of apples left. I have the rest of this box. I don't know if you can see it, but I have the rest of this box and a whole other box I need to get through. And so I'm gonna try making fermented apples. So from what I have read about them, and if you hear the TV in the background, I'm trying to just have a relaxing morning before we start school, and right now that's what it's taking. But maybe not. Supposedly you don't have to wash these off because you want the bacteria off of these. And I got these locally, and I'm just going to fill up this jar. I'll add my salt, my lemon juice, and the water, and we'll see how this goes. And I'm just gonna do like little slices. And if there's a lot of blemishes or something, I will take it off. Lemon juice and good quality salt. I'm going to use Redmond salt. You probably can't see it. There we go. I do have some apples left from one that I just cut. So once I fill this with some water, I'm going to see if there's any wiggle room to put them in there. But if not, so, and I'm doing this from Ruth Ann Zimmerman. I'll link the video about this below. And because she also added things like clove and cinnamon. This first round I'm not going to. I may do a smaller one because I still have quite a bit left, so maybe like a ½ gallon, and add some cloves and cinnamon to it. That sounds actually kind of good. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons of quality salt, not table salt. And then she said the equivalent of 4 lemons. I have really tiny lemons right now that my kids have been picking, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And it's really just to help with the browning. And I like the taste of lemon juice, so if it's a little tart on top of it, I'm okay with that. So now I'm going to go to my Berkey, and I'm going to fill this all the way up with water, and then kind of mix it around, see if I can get more of this in, and then I'll show you how I'm going to leave it. Okay, that gets very heavy. So I don't think I'm going to fit any more. but I need to go get my weight to put on top. So I'm thinking, because this is a little weight, I'm gonna use one of the little fermentation, and if you're hearing sirens, I'm on a busy street and my windows are open. So hopefully you can hear me. But such as urban living, right? Even if it's out in the rural area. I'm gonna put it upside down to kind of give it a little bit more surface. And then I will put this on. Yeah, that works. And then we find my lid. Probably get a little bit more water in there. But, so she said that if you're not used to fermented foods, which I am not, to maybe try it around day 3 or 4. She lets hers go a week or so, maybe a little longer after the fact. So I'm going to let this go for about 3 days. And I will be burping this every day. I don't have a big enough fermentation lid for this to let it out. And it isn't horribly tight. It would probably leak if I was to mix it. So I'm just gonna leave this on the counter over here next to me so I remember to actually burp it. But from her video, she says it's usually not that big of a deal with apples. With this one, I did do clove, and then there's cinnamon on the bottom as well. So that's a half one. I went out to the garden and cut some fresh rosemary. The rosemary is just a wonderful herb to have in your garden. The smell is just amazing. This is really old garlic scapes that a couple years old probably. And I just went ahead and chopped them up and did this a few years ago. So I'm gonna put this on top. As you can see, it's pretty crumbly. It did turn out pretty delicious, but it was pretty sticky and crumbly, so maybe I did something wrong, or there's a better way to preserve this in the freezer. If there is, let me know in the comment section below. I have 4 of these in the pantry that I need to use that I don't ever plan on buying again. So this is lunch today. Nothing fancy. And I do have the focaccia bread in there. It does not look like my normal focaccia bread, so I'm kind of hoping it rises. If not, the kids will probably still eat it anyways. But it did rise a little bit, as you saw, so I'm not too worried. But I'm gonna get this out of my pantry today. One of the reasons I really want to get these out of the pantry is not only are they expired, but this company was sold and I just don't trust it anymore. I don't remember the big brand that bought it out, but they're really, and I mean, it's boxed. I don't want it. If this is something that you have, I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it if that's what you need for this season of life, but I do encourage you to read the ingredients on this and to see what it is. I bought this at our discount store probably a few months ago, which is, you know, it's about to expire, which is why it was at the discount store. And I regretted it. We just don't buy this stuff. I don't eat it. It gives me migraines. And so why am I feeding it to my kids essentially? But they like it. So here we are. This will be like a little treat for them. And it'll be out of my pantry now, so nothing goes to waste.
My favorite part is the focaccia bread.
Yeah. Let's see how these graham crackers can come out. I've never made these before. It's nice and hard. It's been a little less than 24 hours. My mother's came over and they're outside with the kids. So let's see if I can get this done while the kids are distracted with my parents. It feels a lot like cookie dough, which I think she wrote in her recipe, which if I didn't say it already, I will put in the description box below. may have doubled this recipe and I just don't remember it. So. I will definitely be trying this recipe again and not doubling it, and see if I can get it rolled out thinner, because these were definitely a graham cracker cookie. Delicious, but not the intended goal.